detected in Central Luzon, 3 in Metro Manila, 2 in Calabarzon, and 1 in the Bicol region.
We do not have to be scared, and a devastating surge does not have to happen. I think one of the things in the news is people think that it will happen for sure. It will not happen if we do not lose control of the pandemic.
The local IATF in Zamboanga City wants to recall an order allowing minors to go out in public.
Siguro po kasama na dyan yung rekomendasyon ng mga eksperto kung babawiin yung naunang pag-anunsyo na pinapayagan ng mga bata edad 5 hanggang 17 na makalabas ng bahay sa mga open spaces.
Magkakaroon uli ng bubble that remains to be seen. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali, meron na yatang resolution ang Metro Manila Council na naka-address sa IATF na ibalik muli sa dati siste yung mga kabataan.
The rising reproduction number of COVID-19 and rising cases of the Delta variant are prompting the urgency to vaccinate more people. But how can local governments speed up vaccination? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay of One News, and with us online are Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, good evening.
Hello, Robbie.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. And
happy, no?
ano ba? Bakit?
Happy ba?
Bakit hindi happy? Ami, parati naman ganyan pambungad mo. Wala namang happy sa iyo eh.
Mga taga Philippine Star talaga ganyan.
Biro, 12 na naman na nadagdag dyan sa Delta.
Sa Delta.
Para na nag-uumpisa tayo ng COVID neto di ba? Padagdag na padagdag.
Well, just to add to that, 12 ang dumagdag sa Delta, tapos they were discovered na magaling na sila. Ibig sabihin...
Ganon kabagal, ano?
Ibig sabihin...
Ganon katagal.
nung hindi pa sila magaling.
Ganon kabagal yung detection
Kaya
ng Delta. Wow,
This-
So, ang hirap mag-project, pero you can just imagine kung ilan yung undetected, ano?
Oo.
Although yung good news nga is nagre-recover ba? Oh, we hope, no?
wag na lang natin imaginein. Baka kung saan-saan pa mapunta yung usapan natin. Tanungin na lang natin yung mga expert. Let's begin tonight with Philippine Red Cross Biomolecular Laboratories Chief and former Health Secretary Dr. Pauline Obial. Good evening, Dr. Obial.
Good evening, Dr.
Evening, Doc.
Obial.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Ma'am,
Nice to be here.
Para we don't necessarily alarm people, although we know every bit of news is important, why don't you set us off right? How do we contextualize the numbers on the new cases of Delta variant? With the 12 being reported today, that now puts us at near 50. It's, I think, 47 cases now.
Yeah, 47.
Opo. So
Yes.
how do we interpret this?
Well, currently, the Philippine Genome Center is the only facility that does genome sequencing sa atin, ano? And ang nakikita po natin sa tinetest nila, and they're testing about 700 every run, and majority of the variant that they test is still the alpha and beta variant. The UK, yung alpha, and the beta is the South African variant. And Delta, which is the Indian variant, is 47. So it's less than siguro 0.2% of the total variants detected in the country. So ang majority pa rin, it's 50 and 50% are beta and 40% are alpha variants. So Delta is just a small proportion. Kung tinitingnan natin, marami bang Delta? Probably, because this is less than 1% of all the samples that turn out positive in this country. But yun nga, yung spread niya is still not that many.
Okay,
It's
but
still
even
beta and alpha.
and that factors in kahit pa limited ang capacity natin for genome sequencing.
Yes, because you parang assume that their sampling is random, no? So we can actually see the spread kung ilan ang delta compared to the other variants. So parang medyo kampante pa tayo to say that hindi pa ganong kalaganap sa Pilipinas yung delta.
Pero apart from the variants, doctor, minomonitor yung total caseload, ano? And Octa Research said, siguro by the weekend, kung masosustain yung high numbers, the government might have to acknowledge na meron nang surge. No? But medyo bumaba ngayon, naging 5,000 from 6. Pero maybe you can give context to that sa testing dahil sinasabi din yung iba, nagbakasyon daw kasi ng Martes. Kumusta ba yung
Yes, yes.
Yung test?
When we have holidays and weekends, talagang bumababa yung ating volume of testing. I don't know because may mga, like for the Red Cross, yung mega swabbing facilities, these are the facilities that usually send samples to our laboratory. So wala sila kung weekends. So our lowest is actually Sundays and Mondays. But sumisipa yan pagdating ng Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So may cycle every week. Usually Thursday and Friday are the highest output days.
Kaya lang nagbakasyon ng Tuesday. So kailan malaman
Yes.
yung impact nun? Yung impact nung vacation, yung holiday na yun? Nakikita ba yun ngayon or bukas?
Actually, nakita na natin yan ngayon, that yesterday, mga less than 3,000 o 3,500 lang ang cases, and I think, teka lang, okay, 34,562 ang total tests yesterday. And today, it's around 47,000. So, parang may impact talaga yung holiday. There are less people going out for testing. And even siguro the laboratories, some laboratories are closed on holidays, but not the Red Cross. We're open every day, 24/7, even
Ma'am, let me put
Christmas and New Year.
Yes, ma'am, let me put it this way. Kasi a lot of people felt relieved na medyo mababa yung numbers today compared to or versus yung earlier
Yesterday.
concern ng Octa Research na baka pumalo today ng 8,000 from yesterday's 6,500. Are you saying that are you saying then that it's a bit too early for us to to express a sigh of relief na baka it still could spike again or go up again significantly the next few days?
Yes, we cannot actually predict when the numbers will spike. I think we can get a lesson from Indonesia that sometime in early June, mga June 1 to 15, the number of cases in Indonesia was still around 20,000 a day. And then the following week, parang biglang nag-spike siya to around 40,000 a day. So nag-double immediately within just a matter of days. So we cannot really say or predict, I think that's the word, what will happen tomorrow based on the numbers today. Kasi it can happen na biglang tataas. And that has happened also last year when we had in August, from around 2,000 a day, bigla tayo nag-spike to 6,000. And then it continued on for some time. That was our first wave. And then last April, there was a lull during the Holy Week, And then when we came back from Holy Week, biglang nag-spike to 15,000 yung cases. So we cannot predict based on previous number of cases.
But at this point, do you agree that we have to adjust the protocols and the quarantine status of, LGUs, no?
Well, for me, it's not because of the number of cases kasi nga it can spike anytime. But the entry of the Delta variant is really something to keep us on alert.
Prepare for.
Yes, because it's more transmissible. Yung alpha and beta is 60% transmissible. Ibig sabihin, if you have a 2.4 reproduction rate, magiging around 3 to 4 or up to 5 cases for one positive case. But in the case of the Delta variant, it's 97% reproduction number. So it's around 6 to 8 people that will be infected with one positive case. So sobrang taas yung jump if ever. Like today, if there's only 3 people that has the Delta, or sabihin na natin 11 people, because that was the report today, in a matter of 1 week, magiging thousands of people na yan. Ganong kabilis yung reproduction niya. So I think that's what's we have to worry about, the reproduction number and the increase in spike of cases. And that's what also we are preparing for at the Philippine Red Cross, the surge in the cases that can happen at the blink of an eye. Parang today we're at 4,000 to 5,000 cases per day. Tomorrow it can immediately to 10,000 to 15,000. When we had 15,000 in April, we were really parang scrambling where to refer our patients, even at the Red Cross, because we received calls. We have a fleet of ambulances. So we really find hospitals for these patients. And in April, we had to send them to Batangas, to Tarlac, to Pampanga, because the Metro Manila hospitals were already full.
And ma'am, are we ready for
the
that?
reason
Are we ready
asking
for...
is because I'm wondering now whether the IATF will have to try to stave off, the transmissibility effect of Delta by imposing restrictions now, or by doing it gradually, bit by bit, as the numbers come in, no? Because that was my impression from last night's interview with Secretary Mon Lopez, no? Na parang we will wait for the numbers first and then we will move accordingly. So my question to you is whether we should stave it off now and adjust the protocols already so that we can prevent sabi nga nila, no, the likelihood, which is high, of transmissibility at the rate that Delta has.
Well, at the Philippine Red Cross, we're already heightening our restrictions, in our small ecosystem there, our offices, so that hindi kami tatamaan. Like siguro an LGU, you can look at it as a microcosm of the entire country or population. So what we did for now, we told people to stop unnecessary travel. No leave is allowed, like our people cannot go home to the provinces, to their families. For the time being, we suspended all the leaves, and we made sure that our people are also working at home. 50% na lang yung pumapasok sa office, when
So
before we...
inuunahan nyo na.
Yes.
Nauna na kayo, no? Yun na nga eh. So, should the country do the same thing? I guess that's everyone's question, no? Unahan na ba natin or antayin natin na biglang tumaas, diba? Because that's what you
I
just
think
said, no? Na in a matter of a week. Sa Indonesia, nag-double, diba? So,
Yes, it's better to be prepared and to parang move ahead, ano? Because we believe that we should be like really putting things in place so that we don't get the situation of India or Indonesia.
And Dr. Robial, that's what I wanted to ask. In terms of preparing for another surge and preparing for the worst, what has changed, both in terms of numbers, capacity-wise, and also in terms of systems at the hospital level, at the LGU level, or even at the level of communications? What has changed from the last surge in April to now that can make people feel that when we say that we're preparing, something has actually already changed?
Yes, I think the DOH has mentioned this, and in my personal experience with the Department of Health, we have more isolation facilities. In fact, the Red Cross has established 416 beds only starting last April, and I think most of the local governments have also increased their isolation capacities because of the surge last April, and we have maintained that. So kahit na bumaba na nung May, nandiyan pa rin yung mga facilities, ano? And then for the Red Cross, we have emergency field hospitals, yung mga tents na immediately made-deploy namin to expand the hospitals. And I think the DOH has built some of their modular facilities like the Quezon Institute. They're building one in Lung Center, and I think Manila has a 360 bed in Rizal Park, which was not there last April, no? And I know there are more ICU beds in the Department of Health. They've brought in ventilators, X-ray machines, and they distributed a lot of ambulances and vehicles for people to use if there is a need for patient transport or even cadaver transport and all those. So, yung sinasabi ng DOH that we're better prepared now, I think that's true because we know that they have additional facilities for that. But whether we are ready for surge like Indonesia per day to 40,000 per day, let's say we have 6,000 today and tomorrow we'll have 12,000. I don't know if we can actually address that. If we have a gradual increase like 6,000 today, 7,000 tomorrow, 8,000 the next day, then maybe our systems are okay with that. But yung biglaang surge, I don't know if we can really address that. That's what we're afraid of. And I think what happened in India and Indonesia is that they really had this super spreader effects, yung mga religious gatherings that really caused a lot of transmission. So I hope that we really stop those events. Yung mga nangyari last April, there were pool parties, there were birthday parties and gatherings, ano? So should come out with those messages na yung super spreader events must really be halted.
Ma'am, we were talking earlier about
Hello?
the discovery of new cases of the Delta variant. Can you hear me? Ma'am,
Hi,
can you hear me?
doctor. Nawala.
Yes?
Oh, yes, okay. Ma'am, we were...
Hello? Lumakas
Yes, can you
yung
hear
ulan
us?
dito eh.
Hello.
Yes,
But
I can hear.
can you hear us? Okay.
Yes.
Ma'am, we were earlier talking about the new cases of Delta variant, and well, one thing strikes us. It's the fact that all our discoveries of the Delta variant are all of patients that have already recovered. Ibig sabihin, we suppose gagala-gala sila ng ilang linggo na may Delta variant na hindi natin alam at na-discover lamang na may Delta variant sila nung sila'y gumaling na. This is a question we've been asking a lot of people already, including people from DOH. Of course, to begin with, we know that the Genome Center is doing a very good job given its resources. Pero ano ang kailangan ng Genome Center o ng sistema para mapabilis po yung pag-gene sequencing para mapaaga yung pag-discover ng mga Delta variants. Like I said po, we appreciate what the Genome Center is doing. Pero baka naman they need resources, personnel, equipment, kasi we've been asking that and we don't get a straight answer eh.
Yes, I think in many of the countries we've gone to, like I studied in the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, many of their processes are already automated. Hindi na sila nagpapipet ng isa-isa. So I think that's one of the things that we are still wanting in this country, automation. Like the Philippine Red Cross, our facilities are basically automated. Kami yung pinakamalaking testing center because all our processes, we can process 42,000 tests per day. But we get only 10 to 11,000 samples. Pero kaya pa namin. And in fact, we bought more machines that are yung bigger capacity. And we've also brought in yung mga pipetors that are really volume. So I think that's what the Philippine Genome Center needs to do, automation, which is not yet happening.
Okay, Secretary Obial, Dr. Obial, maraming salamat po. And Dr. Obial, of course, is with the Philippine Red Cross and former Health Secretary. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Pauline Obial.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Stay safe.
You too.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs here on One News. Now joining us is pediatric infectious disease expert Dr. Anna Ong Lim. Dr. Ong Lim, welcome again to the Chiefs.
Hi, good evening, Doctor.
Hi, Doc. Good evening po.
Bob, what do you think? Should we be anticipating a recalibration of GCQ and bring back some restrictions? The mayors have already asked, of course, to reconsider yung loosening the restrictions to allow even children. What do you think of all of these developments, especially now that the Delta variant is so high on the minds of everyone?
Well, I think that's a very prudent response, no? Kasi inuulit-ulit naman natin that Delta is really more transmissible. And so it would be very inconsistent, di ba? In the face of that information to insist on doing things business as usual.
So you're
I
saying
think the-
nang anuhin yung mga bata, na pabalikin na muna sa bahay yung mga bata. Is that what you're saying? Oh, you're a pediatric doctor. Is that your recommendation?
That's been discussed, and so initially the thinking was that the situation was stable, NCR in particular, and other areas with GCQ and GCQ status had decreasing cases, and this was being balanced against the very prolonged interval over which kids had been locked in. No? So it was thought na maybe this would be a good time, but that was like before Delta came into the horizon.
Would that be enough, though?
Yes,
If that's
would that be
the
enough?
only thing that will be changed for now, no? Because the debate is really whether to do it soon and faster, or whether to do it gradually as the numbers come in, then they will adjust. You know, how should we do it and at what rate?
So you're asking Lucci about the restrictions in general, I suppose. no?
Yes, yes, the
Yes.
adjustments, yes.
It really will depend on how quickly the cases are detected, how quickly the cases will spread. You know, I think it's really nothing short of a miracle that we haven't had such an explosive increase in NCR, diba? Kasi
Yes.
all of our surges have really been based in NCR, except for this one, which is something of a mystery, but welcome nonetheless because it gives us time to prepare. And I heard part of your discussion with Dr. Ubial. There's been a lot of movement in the background, just trying to get things ready because we know how bad this can get.
And ma'am,
Ma'am, like what, ma'am?
just to be,
What
not
kind
to
of
be...
movement?
Hospitals,
Well-
preparations, no? Yeah.
So actually the preparations that Dr. Ubial mentioned, no, increasing the capacity of the hospitals, the ICUs, making sure the LGUs are ready to receive patients with moderate or rather with mild and asymptomatic cases into their TPNFs, talking about ramping up capacity for testing again, discussing interventions for patients with mild and asymptomatic cases so that they don't have to flock to the hospitals, talking about do we have enough oxygen supply and what should be prepared to make sure that we at least have a fighting chance against this.
But in terms of quarantine restrictions, what should we be doing now ahead of time? I mean, ahead of that potential surge.
I think people should rethink how they move. I mean, regardless of what quarantine restrictions are going to be imposed in the community, I think dapat marunong mag-isip ang bawat individual. Yung ilalabas mo ba today, kung nahawaan ka ng Delta, hindi mo ba isisisi, ipagkasisisi yun? So 'di ba parang I think we've lived long enough with this for us to know how to behave. So kung ano man yung gawin pa in the community, we still have the freedom to choose to take care of ourselves in a very appropriate manner. Kasama na yung bakuna, di ba?
Ma'am, idikit ko na rin po dyan na yung question po ng contact tracing, I know that's a DILG job pero kasi we learned yesterday in an interview with Yusek Densing na mag-expire na yung kontrata ng contact tracers in the next few days or weeks and they're looking for funds already. Sayang nga hindi nagamit yung funds ng bayanihan to, mga 9 billion na binalik eh. How big an impact would that have on our fight against the Delta variant? How significant would that be?
Well, of course, it's always important to be able to do good contact tracing in a timely manner because as the experience of other countries has shown, when you have contact tracing being done quickly, you can contain spread. Pero there's also a way of going around it. Kung ikaw bilang may sakit, no, marunong kang mag-isip na, o sige, may nararamdaman na ako, hindi muna ako lalabas, magpapatest muna ako, sasabihan ko yung mga kasama ko sa bahay na wag muna tayong lumabas hanggat hindi bumalik yung negative result ko, di ba mababawasan yung kailangan i-contact trace ng mga contact tracer kahit may pambayad pa tayo sa kanila?
May kusa.
Oo. Marami tayong pwedeng gawin, really.
Doctor, there's also growing concern about breakthrough infections with regard to Delta. No? How worried should we be considering na tuloy-tuloy naman yung vaccination natin?
Ito precisely, Ami, yung sinasabi natin nung simula na any vaccine none of the vaccines actually promise to prevent infection or prevent transmission of the virus. The impact is really felt in the prevention of severe critical disease or decreasing the risk of death. So even if we accept the fact that breakthrough infections can happen. But breakthrough infections, because they occur in patients who are vaccinated, are typically lower in terms of viral load, typically less contagious, no? And of course, yun nga, yung hinahabol talaga natin, decreasing the risk of death or decreasing the risk of severe disease will be very significant. So, going back, no, even as we think about, ay nako, baka magka-breakthrough, isipin din natin kung yung matataas ang risk na magkasakit, yung A2 at A3 natin, ay hinabol natin as close to 100% as possible, ibig sabihin, hindi tayo ma-overwhelm. Diba? Hindi mapupuno yung mga ospital. And kung hindi mapupuno yung mga ospital, we have a fighting chance to keep the economy open, which is equally important. Diba?
Okay. Dr. Anna Ong Lim, we'd like to thank you once again for the time you've given us. Maraming salamat po. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we're keeping on with the discussion. Joining us now is Navotas City Mayor Toby Chanco. Good evening, Mayor Chanco.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor.
Yes, Ed, Lucy,
Hi, sir.
Ami, evening.
Po.
Mayor Chanco, kamusta po kayo dyan sa Navotas?
Okay naman, okay naman.
Eh,
Anong balita sa IATF?
Oh,
wala.
sa recommendations nyo.
No, the last meeting we had was nung Sunday pa Nung nga yung nag-decide ng
Sa children.
yes, but doon sa Navotas, we never lifted it naman di ba? It has always been yung 18 years old. So never kami bumaba doon sa 5 years old. No, hindi kami umabot doon because ang nangyayari noon last week, ang sinabi ko doon sa barangay captains, wag nang isipin yung malalaking park. Ang isipin lang yung mga open spaces na maliliit para hindi nalilipat ng barangay yung mga bata na dadali ng magulang doon sa harap ng bahay nila, doon sa malapit na lang. So yun yung strategy namin para hindi din ganun ka-mobile, di ba? Mas kasi kung mamamasahe, may chance pang mahawa doon, manghahawa pa doon. So yun yung strategy namin. And then we decided on the capacity. And nung Friday, pinirmahan ko na actually yung sulat doon sa City Council to adjust the curfew from 24 hours, may window from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. na pwede ilabas yung bata. Sana. Kaya lang at the same day, o nung Sabado yata, lumabas na may Delta variant. So hindi ko na tinuloy yung pagsulat sa council.
Kaya nga, sir, I imagine you're getting a lot of constant briefings on the Delta variant. Is there anything in particular about what you've learned? I mean, all of us have been trying to read up on Delta variant, trying to keep up with the latest information. But sa mga briefings nyo, is there anything that jumps out at you that is of particular concern na para sa inyo, marami na kayo napapaghandaan. We've come a long way, but this is different.
Hindi, yun. Sinabi sa amin nung linggo na maghanda ng oxygen. Tulad nung sinabi ni Dr. Anna. I think she was there in that meeting. So sinabihan kami maghanda ng oxygen. No? But ang problema dito sa oxygen, limited talaga yung source, di ba? Ibig sabihin, hindi naman biglang magkakaroon ng additional production ng oxygen. Ang mangyayari lang yan, kung may isang LGU na hindi masyadong mataas yung surge, makakakuha siya. Pero pag lahat yan tumaas, kukulangin din talaga yan, di ba? Di naman kasi makaka-increase basta-basta ng production ng oxygen overnight.
Is there a number, sir, to give us an idea of what our capacity is right now? Kanina we were talking to former Health Secretary Pauline Obial. She's now with the Red Cross. And she's saying, look, no matter what happens, if we look at the surge from April and now kahit paano tumaas na yung capacity and capabilities natin nationwide and in NCR. At the same time, we are bracing for higher numbers. But is there a number that we know na ito ngayon yung capacity ng NCR?
Hindi, last night, doon kami paikot-ikot yung usapan namin nung aming mga sa Navotas City Hospital, no? Ang kontrata pala kasi namin is we have a certain amount na binibid out and then based on that amount, as needed, di ba? Kunyari, for today, ang kailangan 50, di-deliver ng 50. Bukas kailangan ng 80, di-deliver ng 80. It's not a fixed order because you don't really know your demand. Bakit ka naman magpapadeliver kung wala kang paggagamitan, di ba? And tsaka alam naman ng lahat ito, the tank is more expensive than the oxygen, di ba? So we cannot store the oxygen. So talagang yung tank, ano yan pag-aari ng supplier tapos dinadala lang yung oxygen pag nandiyan. So yun yung So ang ginawa lang namin is to get another supplier. So magpapabid out ulit kami ng isa pang supplier para dalawa yung pwedeng mag-supply sa amin instead na isa.
Mayor, nabanggit nyo na tuloy-tuloy yung nyo, no? Yung ban nyo on children going outdoors. May prerogative pala yung mga local executives na hindi sumabay with the Metro Manila Council. Ganun ba yun?
Yes.
Or do you have to wait for the IATF approval?
No, with all I have explained this to Sina Ed the other night. With all the IATF resolutions naman, there is always a prerogative because the IATF resolution is a resolution. Yung ginagawa natin dito sa Navotas is always an ordinance. So it is a law, di ba? So yung 24-hour curfew natin is an ordinance, di ba? But even if hindi ordinansa, even nung sinabi nila natandaan nyo yung sinabi nila na pag nakadalawang bakuna na, hindi na kailangan ng RT-PCR test, di ba? Pero dito sa Navotas, we never lifted that requirement. Up to this day, kahit nakadalawang...
Yun talaga may prerogative yun. Pero yung sa children, nakala ko, dapat sabay-sabay lahat. In fact, we are waiting for the IATF decision. Kung hindi ngayon, bukas.
Yung Metro Manila Mayor, I believe, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, kung hindi overwhelming majority, but I believe it's unanimous na hinihingi na. Pero yung sa atin naman dito sa Navotas, it's an ordinance So, an ordinance is a law. It has the effect of law, di ba? So, yung IATF resolution, it's a resolution. It's not a law. So, ang stand namin doon is we will stand by the ordinance, no?
Pero hindi ba yan din yung argument ng Cebu about their, yung sa facility quarantine nila na it's a law? I think it's a provincial ordinance. At sinabi ng Malacanang hindi pwede yan na hindi pwede, kailangan ng masunod yung national government policy.
I'm not familiar. Ami, alam mo, sa sobrang dami inaasikaso sa lokal, hindi ko na alam kung ano yung nangyayari doon sa Cebu. Sorry, hindi ko alam kung ano yung naging usapan doon. But dito sa Metro Manila naman, wala naman problema because I think the Metro Manila resolution states na, alam mo, ang bilis nga niyan The first Metro Manila resolution, I think, the first MMC resolution, I think 2 weeks ago, ang gumawa kami na resolution to set the parameters na nga, saan pwede, maglagay ng marshal, anong capacity. Then bigla lang nagkaroon ng bigla lang nagkaroon ng Delta variant, kaya biglang palit na naman ng policy, di ba?
Mayor, kumusta ang
Yes,
vaccination rate dyan? Kasi yan lang talaga raw ang medyo nakakasiguro tayo the most effective way to deal with this Delta variant, at least para hindi tayo magkulang sa capacity. Pag bakunado ng napakaraming tao ay kahit na mahawa, hindi ma-ospital. So tanungin ko lang kayo, kumusta kayo dyan in terms of vaccination rate?
Nasa na tayo today? As of today, 103,844 over a target of 150,000 residents.
Oy, malapit-lapit na yun, ha? So when do you expect to actually meet the target?
It depends on the supply. Kasi parang sa computation natin, nasa 70% na tayo, di ba? Kaya namin magbakuna ng 4,000 a day. So kung ang kulang natin is 50,000, that's 12 days. Kung kompleto yung bakuna. 12 days matatapos natin yung first dose, and then depende sa bakuna, ang pinakamatagal doon is 3 months. Kasi kung AstraZeneca, that's 8 weeks, di ba? Kung Janssen, of course, madali yung trabaho, 1 dose lang, tapos na.
Nakakuha ka ba ng Janssen?
Yes,
Yan,
meron tayong...
Meron naman.
Meron naman.
May mga dumating daw ngayon eh. 1.5,
Yes, mukhang popular yung...
diba? Yeah.
Mukhang popular yung Janssen eh. Oo.
Kasi
Lalo
1 dose.
Yeah, and ito yung hina-house to house namin doon sa mga senior citizens, doon sa mga bedridden, yan ang dinadala namin.
Right.
Because dito sa Navotas, ang problema namin is doon sa senior citizen, nasa 60% pa lang rin tayo eh. 63%. So, imagine, sila yung A2, di ba? Sila yung second priority. Dapat halos mga 90% na eh. Kaya lang, dito sa Navotas, mabagal yung sa senior citizen namin. Yung A3, walang problema doon. A4, walang problema doon.
Hindi ba, sir, mas malakas ang sipa ng Janssen? Considering it's getting 2 doses in one?
First day kasi namin today eh. So, wala pa akong na dinig. But
wala report, ha?
Yes, but because nga yung senior citizen namin medyo mabagal, parang may gimmick na naman kami bukas na pwede na rin mag-walk-in, pwede na rin mag-sign up for the Janssen, and meron kami tinatawag na box 1, take 1. Ibig sabihin, kasi yung Janssen...
I want take one.
Hindi. Yung Janssen is supposed to be pang senior citizen, di ba?
Yes.
So kung kunyari, merong hindi senior citizen, basta sumama ka sa isang senior citizen, babakunahan namin yung nag-alalay. Kasi baka ang reason kaya hindi sila makapunta is hirap sila. So kung magdala ka either way, kung sino magdala ng kanino, kunyari yung senior citizen, nagdala ng kasama, o ikaw, may nakumbinsi ka senior citizen, dinala mo doon. Kasi yung mga bata, gusto rin nila yung Janssen, di ba? Pero hindi natin mabigay 100% because we always have to prioritize yung mga senior citizen dahil sila yung pinaka-vulnerable. So isip lang ng paraan kung paano makumbinsi yung mga senior citizen.
Box 1, take 1.
Box 1. Kung ano na naiisip na.
But in the meantime, Mayor, of course, one advantage ng Janssen, it's 1 single dose, which begs the question, kamusta po ba yung mga second dose? Are you encountering any problems with people coming back for their second doses?
Hindi, walang problema. Except yung doon sa Sputnik, di ba? Kasi yung problema sa Sputnik is iba. Wala yung second dose ng Sputnik.
Kulang. Yeah.
Yes, kulang yung second dose ng Sputnik. That is the only vaccine naman na nagkulang yung second dose, no? Yung Sinovac, last day namin today ng second dose, kasi ang pinapastock lang sa amin is 7 days, di ba? Pero may dumating naman today. So, okay lang. Okay lang. Pero yung Sputnik talagang medyo delayed doon. Yung Pfizer, we really put aside the second dose for that. Hindi pinapagamit sa amin yun eh. Yung Astra, mahaba-haba naman yung second dose noon, 8 to 12 weeks. So, hindi masyadong problema doon. But yung Sputnik talagang doon may problema sa second dose, no?
Okay. Navotas City Mayor Toby Chanco. Sir, maraming salamat po.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening.
And we still are continuing with this conversation. Our last guest for tonight, Octa Research Fellow Professor Guido David. Professor David.
Speaking of.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Hey.
Hello, Professor.
Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Okay. So,
Yung worst case scenario mo, hindi natuloy,
Well, that's good news, pero hindi pa tapos yung week, so we can't be victorious yet. Actually, nakaka-concern kasi they're finding more cases ng Delta variant, and parang every day may nakukukay silang panibagong case. I mean, uncovering new cases, ibig sabihin this is more widespread than we previously thought.
yes, but before we drill down to Delta specifically, on the total numbers, kahapon you were expressing that this could be, and you said that we might hit 8,000. Thank God you're wrong. But at the same time, you did say that, the numbers could be suggesting that we could be at the start of another surge. Where are we on that particular thinking?
Well, actually, this a report namin today based on yesterday's numbers. We saw the reproduction number in the NCR spike to nasa 1.15 na siya from 0.91 last week. So it's above 1 and hindi lang above 1. Yung increase niya, it was actually in our report, it was similar to the increase from February 13 to February 19, which was the start of the surge in March. So ibig sabihin, we might be at the very earliest stage of the surge. And that's why we have to be proactive. Kasi last time, February 13 to 19, we weren't sure pa kasi it was very early stages. So sabi namin, sige, let's wait a few more days to confirm the trend. And then on February 24 to 26, we confirmed it. It was definitely increasing, and then we sounded the alarm. Pero we got the response March na. In fact, we had the ECQ March, March 28, and before that time, we had a discussion. Sabi nga namin, yung mag 2-week timeout na lang during Holy Week. Actually, nangyari nga siya. Nagkaroon tayo ng ECQ during Holy Week. Pero at this time,
yun nga, should we nip it in the bud? I think that's really the question, di ba? I mean, if you're saying that we're seeing the start of a surge and that it looks too much like the February experience, should we be more drastic in our restrictions?
Right. It doesn't have to be drastic, but we have to be proactive, and we have to do it early. If we do it earlier, then we don't have to wait until mag-surge siya, and then it'll be easier to control this if we start earlier. We could start now. In fact, last week pa namin sinasabi, even before the start of the surge, parang we could contain the region, maybe impose a bubble, stricter border controls. Ngayon, maybe the border controls will not be so useful, pero what we're saying is we could have be more proactive, pwedeng lagyan na natin ng curfew, lessen capacities in establishments, disallow children. So some interventions na hindi pa naman drastic in scale, but at least we're doing something that will help reduce yung mobility, help reduce yung possibility of infections. And I think we can still do that now. Hindi naman natin kailangan hintayin na, okay, like last time, hinintay namin 1 week and then at that time, tumaas na yung cases. We were nag-double na yung number of cases. We don't have to wait until mag-double yung cases. Of course, it could be a false alarm. Pwedeng, ay, hindi naman pala tatas masyado. Pero wala nang masama if we are careful. Especially since we have evidence na may local cases ng Delta variant, and that's a big game changer. Kung wala namang local cases and we're seeing an uptick, hindi naman kami maa-alarm din eh. So the game changer is the presence of the Delta variant. And if we're overreacting, I don't think we're overreacting, but we're just being cautious na uunahan na natin before something happens. We don't want to wait until we start seeing this, the semblance of India or Indonesia. Kasi when that level comes now, we're certain na may surge, it might be too late. Ibig sabihin, yung interventions natin might not work anymore. Even if we have a GCQ with restrictions, it might not work anymore. Like last time na nagka-surge tayo, we had to resort to ECQ kasi wala na tayong choices. But right now, if we increase some restrictions, hindi naman kailangan mag-MECQ pa, for example, then maybe we can, as you said, we can control it at the outset.
Professor, we heard Father Nick Austriaco say warning that it might go up to 10,000 a day. But we're talking here about the Delta variant na more transmissible nga, really transmissible. What will that mean exactly for us? Halimbawa, naka 10,000 tayo. Within what period siya magti-triple, quadruple, ganon, kung hindi siya makokontrol?
Well, Ami, I mean, right now kasi yung starting point natin mas mataas eh because we were already at around almost 6,000 cases per day ngayon. Ibig sabihin, a slight surge lang, pwede na talagang tumalon yan to 10,000. and it could even go higher. So it could even surpass. Kasi last time nung nag-surge tayo, no, February, we were starting at 2,000. So
Yeah, but
mas
it wasn't
mababa.
Delta pa, no? That
It
wasn't
wasn't
Delta.
Delta pa, yes. Well, may mitigating circumstances like yung factor na we have 15% fully vaccinated, and that would help as we mentioned. Pero yun nga, I mean, we're talking about the Delta. I mean, sa Indonesia, they also have a high number of vaccinations, pero they're being hit by the the Delta variant. We don't have to wait until we get to that point na, tinatamaan tayo ng Delta variant. We could, be more proactive.
How different would a surge be, given that in February and March, in the last surge, it was still clearly centered in Metro Manila? And then fast forward to now, where it's more spread out, you have more centers, not necessarily on the same level where NCR was before. But so therefore, a surge before where you had one very clear epicenter versus a surge now where Metro Manila now accounts for what? Is it still less than a quarter of the total cases?
Right. Right now, Metro Manila is accounting for an average of 15 to 16% of the cases. So medyo mababa siya.
Yeah.
But,
So how different would the character of the surge be, given that and given the situation in March?
Right. In situation in March, NCR Plus accounted for, I think, 94%. I mean, including Calabarzon. I mean, parts of Calabarzon and Central Luzon. So 94%. So yung 10,000 cases natin nun, almost all of it sa NCR Plus. So right now, it's more distributed. So we're accounting for only about 15% in the NCR, 15% of the national cases. So ibig sabihin ngayon, kasi maraming naging hotspots in Mindanao and Western Visayas. So NCR is just one of these. Pero if we have a major surge in the NCR, talagang, the 10,000 is just actually yung parang starting point. So it was a fairly, fairly conservative projection. So we could be seeing, upwards maybe, 15 to 20,000, for example. Pero yun, syempre, we shouldn't allow it to get to that. Ang nangyayari kasi ngayon, not just NCR, but Central Visayas is also seeing an increase in cases. Yesterday, pinakamarami sa Cebu City, 287 cases yung na-report nila. So, I mean, that's a significant number. Number two, yung Manila, City of Manila. So, we might have two, coordinated epicenters right now, Central Visayas and NCR, if this happens. Yung sa Central Visayas, it's actually happening. So, yung sa NCR, it can still be mitigated. Of course, yung Central Visayas, they can mitigate it, but they need to be very active to control the surge there.
So yung spread ng hotspots in other parts of the country, doesn't that make it more difficult for government to respond compared to having it only in, for example, NCR, like nung February and March?
Yes, definitely more difficult because if it's spread out, if we have several hotspots, we can't use the strategy na ginagawa natin dati na we can reallocate some resources. For example, in nag-surge na sa NCR, wala namang surge anywhere else in the Philippines because 94% of the cases were here, so they could reallocate, they could lend some nurses. And ngayon, if Cebu City is also having a surge, we are having a surge. Cases are still high in Davao. And then Cagayan de Oro, they're still high. I mean, slow down now, but it's still high. And then we have also a surge in Lawag City. So everywhere na, parang, it's going to be more difficult to control it pag nangyari. Now, that's why siguro prevention is the best strategy at this time.
At this point, are we saying that it's inevitable?
Well, if you ask Professor Ranjit, he would say yes. He would say it's a question of not if, but when. But I mean, I think now we can definitely mitigate it pa if we, use the correct, if we are very proactive. Sa Taiwan, they had a surge ng Delta, but they were able to control it, even though mababa pa yung vaccinations nila. So it can actually be done, and we have seen it in some countries. But in some countries na, I think Thailand is being more proactive now. Malaysia is also finding ways to control the surge. Sa Indonesia talaga nahihirapan. It's already been called the new epicenter of the pandemic. I mean, Indonesia, hindi na India. India, they were able to control it. So it's not inevitable, pero, you know, if we don't do anything, if we just wait for it, it will be there.
Okay. Professor Guido David of Octa Research. Sir, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Professor.
Thank you
Good night.
again, sir.
And that's all for this special edition of The Chiefs, but we hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.